Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We kind of expected a low crowd today. I didn't think it would be this low crowd, but we welcome you. I want to echo. We do welcome you to the owners section of the Meet the Candidates for 23-24. And before we get started, I'd like to tell you who I am. In case you don't know who I am Janice Adams. I am the secretary of the board for this year, and I'm also the nominating team's chairperson. So before we get started, I would like to thank our team. We've got Linda Rakowski on the nominating team. We've got Ann Duncan. And we've got my co-worker here, which is Reed Horn. And I want to thank them for their time and their troubles and all of their hard work for making these come together. Also, I'd like to welcome all of the candidates that are sitting in front of you. And also, these sessions are being recorded with audio only. And we had a session on Tuesday, and if you have gone to the website under the owners portal, it does have the recorded session that we had on Tuesday. This one is also being recorded, and it will be posted on Monday. Okay? All right. Before we get started, I would like to address a concern that some of you may have heard on qualifications and conflict of interest. And in researching with our legal team and reviewing Mount Vernon Tower's bylaws, all of our candidates have met the qualifications for running for the board for 23-24. Those two qualifications in the bylaws state that there should be 2 directors that shall be non-residents of the condominium and 3 directors that shall be resident owners of the condominium. So those are the only 2 requirements by the bylaws. You can review the completed description in our bylaws at Article 4, Section 401, which is also posted on the website. For the conflict of interest concern of a realtor being on a board as a board member, the answer is no. One cannot prohibit realtors from serving on HOA boards. A realtor on the board does not automatically create a conflict of interest. Should areas of discussions in board meetings become a conflict of interest for any board member, they would recuse themselves from the discussions and any voting process. And I believe I speak for all current board members when I say that we, as your duly elected board, take your position very seriously, and we want to ensure that our bylaws and any potential conflict of interest will be addressed and rules and regulations will strictly be followed without impartiality. Okay, MVT current board and management is not affiliated with any statement that a candidate may make or represent. All right, so today your process is, if you attended Tuesday as well, but today's process is going to be like Tuesday. If you have a question, raise your hand. Make sure that you get one of us with a mic so that everybody can hear. And we ask that you ask one question. If time permits, which I believe we will today, if time permits, we'll come back around. But we really want everybody to have an opportunity to ask their question, okay, and be heard. The candidates will have 2 minutes to kind of introduce who they are and why they want to run for the board, and then we will get started on our questions for the audience, okay? The only thing that I'd like to ask is if you have not turned off your phone, if you'll please silence your phone now for any distractions. All right. Who'd like to go first today?
Let's go this time.
Same order.
Start opposite end today.
Got 2 switches on the microphone, got to turn them both on. As I think most of you know, I'm Scott Carrier and been on the board since 2017. And it's important that you look at what we put out in the package, which kind of shows multiple things that I've been involved with. But there are many more because I can't quite list them all in one piece of paper. But one of the things that I think that you wouldn't know that is something we don't see is the HVAC units. They are mounted in each condo. Several years ago, the manufacturer came to us and said, we're going to increase the size of the unit that you're using. So I went and did some research and found out that we were using an oversized unit, a unit whose capacity was too large. When we got the capacity of the unit correct, we got the correct capacity unit, they would fit in the existing space, so we didn't have to do any modification. So that saved a good bit of money and time, but we didn't have to spend because it was just a little engineering research. Also in the dining room, you probably didn't notice it, but when it was remodeled, we had a sprayed insulation ceiling go in, and that looked at that insulation, and I said, that doesn't look right. Measured it, found out it was half of what we were paying for. Turned that over to management, and they went ahead and got that corrected. So those are just a couple of things that have happened in the past. Currently, we're involved with the Chases and the Morrison's dining service in the dining room. And those two items are top on my agenda right now that I'm working on and need to get those resolved, and would like to continue to do that as a board member. So I look forward to working on those in the future. So go ahead, send your vote in for me. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael McLonan. I think several of you know me. I've been here. I was the director of maintenance for 8 years. I started back in 2012 when I came. We had a very large vacancy. With that, when I came in, I met with Tommy Miller, Ralph Marion, and we sat down. We decided what was needed. We reviewed, we gave each other our thoughts. I gave them my suggestions, and they let me run with it. We had 60 empty condos. Management trusted me, and the owners did, to renovate their units, some extensive, some minimal. It was over 100. We brought them back up. They were pretty much giving the condos away back then. I mean, you could get them for almost nothing. We turned the building around. You couldn't see the sign out front in the building. It was overgrown. When I came here, I cut costs. I reduced waste, put new boilers in, rooftops, created the extra storages downstairs. You see this room here? I oversaw the construction of this room, the bathrooms, all the game rooms downstairs. I brought the crews in. Again, with HVACs, when I came here, we were paying close to $1,700 a unit. I went to the manufacturer, got them for around $1,100 to $1,200 for how many years? So we were saving $20,000, $30,000 a year. Renegotiated the contracts, used multi-vendors. The gable outside in the courtyard, I oversaw the construction of that. Again, I was here, I worked hard and worked hand in hand with all the realtors. The realtors were in the building, independent ones, with management, every different department. I'm a custom home builder. I've been building for 30 years. I also used to own restaurants, executive chef, so I have a lot I give to the board for the restaurant suggestions. There again, I'd like to serve on the board. I think I have a lot to offer, and I thank you for your consideration.
Good morning. I'm Margaret Brinkman, known as Meg to many of you. The reason I'm running for the board, very simple, this is my home. We all came from a place called home. And while we lived in our homes, there were 4 things that were very important. We must be fiscally responsible. We must maintain the home, upgrade it as necessary, and then the last part is it has to meet our needs. These things are exactly the same here. All of those things are important. I have always been disturbed by the distinction in the mind of many people about off-site owners and resident owners. We all have the same goals. It's all important for us. The off-site owners may not see that last part, does it meet our needs, quite as much as those of us who live here. But if that is not properly done, then this, then the whole thing collapses, because the property values go down because people don't want to live here if it doesn't meet the needs. I have served on a co-op board, a co-op in Washington, D.C., that had some very unique problems. Historic buildings, indoor swimming pool, a water garden, beautiful water garden that became infested with goldfish. And that was a problem. So I have had some experience serving on boards. And all of those same, there we go.
Thank you, Maddie.
Hello, fellow owners. My name is Jerry Bauer. I grew up in Sandy Springs, and I went to Riverwood High School and attended UGA, all in the same area here except for college. Most of you may know me as a neighbor and a realtor at MVT. And being a homeowner here going on 5 years, I feel I know MVT inside and out, and I've been in most every unit in the building. I walk the halls continuously, so I see things many people do not see. My role, if elected, is to do the work and help improve MVT in all ways possible, working alongside with our current board. If elected, I'd like to become an advocate for the modernization of MVT's technology. I believe the time is now to introduce money-saving, user-friendly touchscreen kiosks with pictured icons to be located throughout our facility to cut intensive labor costs. I also believe these kiosks could quickly pay for themselves in a short amount of time. The effect of the streamlining could cut costs and have a more positive experience for most residents. And another technology issue, I'd also propose to have cable and internet services combined and possibly rewired through Comcast or DirecTV at their cost to help with our internet speed. Because now most residents own a smartphone, a smart TV, a tablet, and or computer, which puts a major drain on our system. With my skills and training in my dining experience, I propose to work closely with the dining management to find other solutions to the food and structure of the dining room layout, with possible booths at the windows and hopefully adding healthy alternative menus and self-serve meals. Our current contract ends with Morrison's in a little over a year, first quarter 2024, and it's coming up fast. We do need to explore other alternatives. I happen to be 65 years old, and I figure I may be around here for another 20 years, and all I want to do is see this Mount Vernon Towers grow and improve, and anything I can do in these next 20 years, I'm looking forward to with your help in voting me in. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all. All right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to start. Ann has a mic, I have a mic, and we'll start taking questions from the floor.
Can you all hear? I have a pretty loud voice anyway, for those of you who know me. I just feel that all of us as owners should not turn this into a popularity contest for anyone running on the board. Whether you personally like or dislike somebody is immaterial. You should look at the qualifications, because we have a huge amount of structural work that has got to be done. It is going to be expensive, and with that in mind, I'd like to direct a question to those two on the end.
Okay, specifically Scott and...
Scott and Michael.
Okay.
I know you both have building experience, I heard you say that. What do you have in the way of actual engineering qualifications?
Well, I've got a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in mechanical engineering.
I don't have a degree in college, but I've been building for 35 years. I've built Class A office buildings. I have built shopping centers, and I've built hundreds of homes. And as well, what I did here at Mount Vernon Towers, I oversaw all the maintenance and construction and renovation.
Where were the office buildings and the malls that you built?
The shopping centers of Windward, and also the Class A building behind North Fulton Hospital.
Did you do the actual engineering work on it, or were you the builder?
I was the GC overseeing the GC.
So you were the head contractor?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next question.
I got you. Can you hear me?
No.
Okay. All right.
They can't
You
be
can hear
back
me
up.
back there.
I'm taking 4 of these microphones.
All right, Michael, this question is for you. You clearly have a lot of experience in construction and engineering and maintenance, and I appreciate what you bring to the table on that. But being on the board is more than just that knowledge. It includes knowledge of budgets, regulations, etc. So, given that, our HOA is governed by several laws and documents. Can you name those documents and the order in which they would be applied in the event of a conflict?
I cannot name them in that way, not yet. I have not learned them.
All right, thank you.
Okay. We'll come back around for your second questions if you have one. Dan?
Just want to bounce back and forth.
Well,
There.
no, we've got other people here, so give them a chance. Go ahead.
Give him the chance, okay.
Gotcha.
Several things have occurred over the past year with the existing board. Am I talking too low?
I think I must be in a bad spot. Okay.
Several things have happened with the existing board over the past year. So I have a total of 14 questions to ask in a yes or no by show of hands as to how you would have reacted had you been on the board, or if you had had more power on the board, Scott. First one is, do you commit to obeying all federal, state, county, city, etc. laws? Raise your hand if you do.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. Don't be shy. We really don't want to go 1 and 2. We really want your all's opinion, your comments, your questions, what you feel. This is your all's election. Okay? All right?
Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay, this is for Jerry. Jerry, our HOA does not have published CCRs, which are commonly referred to as covenants, conditions, and restrictions, a typical document for any HOA. Do you support publication of the rules that have been implemented for our HOA, and what was my question? What are your thoughts on the fact that they haven't been published?
Well, I think I agree with you that they should be published, and if they're not, that is something I would be happy to help work on. I don't know that at this time because I'm not on the board, but that would definitely be in my wheelhouse of working as an advocate for the residents and owners.
Okay. I'm always going to ask. Questions back here? Thank you, Ronnie.
This is a yes or no, and I direct it to all 4 candidates, please. Have you served on a board of any kind before of a homeowners association?
Yes. Scott has said yes.
Yeah.
Meg?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Dane, back to you.
You all said that you would commit to obeying the laws. If it was brought to your attention that something the board was undertaking was outside of the law, would you commit to changing direction? Raise your hands if you agree.
Yeah, I think we have to.
I didn't raise my hand. No, I'm not running. Questions?
Okay, this is for Meg. Meg, according to our governing documents, the board is charged with specific duties. Do you know what these are and where they can be found?
The board must present a budget every year. There are certain committees that the board can appoint. The bylaws do not specify that. I'm sorry. Can you hear me? I beg your pardon. Actually, I can't really go too much beyond that. I think those are two of the very important things. And one of the things that I think I have learned over the years is that you have to collect as much information as possible, and I think that goes to your questions also. We have to be knowledgeable, and that is not always easy. It wasn't easy when we were doing our own homes, when we were living in our own homes. There were times when we probably made wrong decisions, but collecting information.
Right now, a little bit.
You're still not, I beg your pardon.
No, that's okay. There you go.
Between my voice and these microphones, there's a problem. It might be a problem to take care of. I think summing it up, boards have to be very careful. While I was in DC, we sponsored a course for board members and co-ops and condos. We hosted them in our facility for several years. And there was one story that they always told, and that was about the Watergate. Yes, that Watergate. The Watergate, brand new, a bunch of owners got together and said, you don't need all this insurance. This is a brand new building. What could possibly happen? Something did happen. A fire, very damaging, not totally covered by insurance. Then some of those same people turned around and sued the board. The takeaway from that is the board has to do the right thing. You have to get the information and do the right thing. It is not the popular thing always. Thank you.
All right. Questions? Gotcha.
As Jill has already brought up, there are several Mount Vernon Tower bylaws and other documents. Do you commit to understanding, learning what are in those documents as to how this operation is supposed to run and conform with everything that is in there? Show of hands if you do.
How can you say no?
How can you say no, Meg? People have been saying no.
Well, I understand that, but they shouldn't.
They should, you're right.
Ready?
I'm ready.
I'm just
Okay.
back and forth until.
So, just so you know, we did not compare notes on
No.
questions. Okay, so, this is for Scott. So Scott, our bylaws specifically state what must be included in our annual budget. Our 2022 budget and board did not provide the capital budget that is required by the bylaws to be included, and they have not followed up with that promised budget since then. Do you think it's okay for the board to violate the bylaws and not provide what's set forth in this legally binding document? I mean, the board expects the members to follow the bylaws and the declarations, but they are not following that. So how do you feel about that?
You're correct in the fact that there is to be a capital budget presented. At the annual meeting, the capital budget was not available. It was promised to come out shortly thereafter, probably by February, and without pointing fingers and saying who's at fault or who did it, it never happened. The current Finance Committee is again addressing a capital budget and anticipates having one available. Hopefully, hopefully at least there will be some sort of capital budget in the annual meeting this year. That should not have happened. And like I said, without pointing fingers, I'm going to say it just didn't happen.
Okay. Any questions back here?
Are you all aware that owners, according to the bylaws, owners are allowed to inspect the books, records, documents, etc. in the operation of Mount Vernon Towers?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Back to Joe.
Yes. Sorry, Scott, this is another one for you.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a dining services committee sort of question, and I know that you chaired the dining service committee. I was on the committee, and so I just want to throw out a couple of data points before I ask my question. So, according to our 2022 budget allocation, our dining services is allotted 30% of our entire budget. The Morrison's dining contract, as you know, is costly, and I'm not making any judgments on the contract, I'm just stating the fact that 65% of that Morrison's contract is labor and management fees. We, 55 plus communities are trending toward different service models and different ways for allocating fees that residents are charged for dining. One of the things I wanted to talk about was in a recent Food Management magazine, which is a publication that service providers and that provide institutional meals like universities, senior communities, what have you. They said that the trend is away from, and I'm quoting, the old days, the typical facility would have one big barn-like dining room, which more often than not was just called the main dining room, where everyone would show up at a particular time and eat from a set menu with limited choices. So what this publication found is that that is not what residents want anymore, that's the old view. The new view is providing multiple venues with full service fine dining, fast casual bistros, and pubs, and even a marketplace where people can go in and pick up a hot coffee, grab a sandwich, grab a snack or whatever. In addition, they're saying that the one-size-fits-all fee for dining is not really going to work going forward, and they are suggesting that different models for charging how residents pay for that service be based on like base packages where you get you start at some value like $100 and increasing with like $50 or so, you would get a different dining package, and maybe you can change your dollars for a restaurant gift card or something like that, because this is what people are saying, people that are 55 and older moving into these facilities want. So I know we're coming up on the end of the Morrison contract. This is our last year. I'm hoping that the incoming board will be looking very closely at that, because Morrison, as you've noted on many occasions, has not met its requirements. But I'm interested in knowing how we're going to take Mount Vernon, this old, outdated, tired, barn-like dining room, into the future so that we can attract more residents here from Sandy Springs and other that want to be here, invest in our community, and we give residents what they want. So are you willing to take the lead, and would you support more innovative ways of charging those fees for residents? So sorry, that was so long. It was a lot.
Good explanation, Joe. Yes, I would love to see us progress into some sort of a multi-dining room experience, particularly with a little marketplace and things like that. And again, like you said, maybe offer packages for people. I think at this point in time, though, we need to resolve what's going on with our current situation and simultaneously develop this plan, because this not only requires, a great plan, but we've got to do some physical changes to the facility too. And to do those, make those changes, we need to develop the plan, get the pricing, get the money to do it. So we're talking about a multi-year project.
Oh, yeah.
Multi-year project. But yes, I would be excited to see something like that happen.
I'd be interested if any of the other candidates have comments too. If they have comments on that.
My feeling is that we should move very slowly in this direction. And again, it's something where I think a great deal of information has to be gathered. I don't find it a barn-like experience.
That was not me. That was
That was somebody else, right? But the dining experience, whether you divide it into these different concepts or keep it the same way that we have, is part of the social experience here. And I would hate to see that go away. I think that's an important part of our life here. However, I am not a Luddite. I do believe that things move forward, and change is always in the wind. But my feeling would be, I think, echoing what Scott has said, there would have to be some physical changes, but I think you also have to be sure that the will of the people are moving in that direction. Thank you.
This morning I had a conversation with my wife. We were going online and we're reading. We have a lot to resolve with Morrison's. We have to get through that first. And that's going to, we're 18 months out from what I understand on that. The reviews, the quality, the complaints. We need to get that in-house and under control before we can do much more. With that, once we get past that, I think the options will open up quite a bit. Because again, I don't think Morrison's is going to change what they're doing, or they haven't done anything to change it or step up to the plate. But there are going to be a lot of options if we take it back in-house, or however management decides to take control of the dining room and oversee the quality and make sure we're delivering what we need to deliver. And when we do that, then we can make these decisions. But if you're going to do that, we need to plan ahead, so when that time comes, those steps could be implemented.
I think we've had a lot of good answers here coming from Jill, talking about the future and what a 55-plus place would be looking for. But when I came in here and when I sell this place or when I lease the place out, one of the first questions is, what's the food like? I used to be able to take them downstairs after a tour, and that pretty much sealed the deal the way the restaurant, this is before Morrison's was here. Well, we went through a pandemic, which was tough for everybody, Morrison's included. But what I would really like to see is just some dietary health restrictions and less salt type menu items that we don't have. We talk about it a lot. Vegetarian plates, we talk about these things a lot, and with Morrison's and with the committee, I'm not sure where that's gone, but if I am elected, I would definitely pursue that, because I have a 20-plus year background in the restaurant business myself, and I would love to be hands-on and an advocate for that. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions?
I think I'm more concerned with the construction coming up because it's money. And I always do watch my pocketbook, shall I say. So this is going to be directed at the two guys that really have the building background. How much time per week do you have available, each of you, that you could devote to overseeing any forward construction projects, which will be major, I imagine? I
do have a job, but I'm flexible. I can come and go pretty much as I care to. I'm currently building within about 20 minutes of here. I can come over as often as I need to. I can spend hours a week. I can spend weekends. I will put in the time I need to make sure that we're delivering the supervision that's needed.
Well, since I'm retired, I have every day, unless I'm traveling somewhere or enjoying my family. But yeah, I currently am spending somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 or 30 hours a week on activities at Mount Vernon Towers in one way or another. So it seems to be a 2/3 job. It's the salary's real low. So I'd be available as needed, basically.
Well, I live here, so I guess the only real answer is as much as it takes.
Okay. Any other questions?
You said that you're aware that owners are allowed to inspect the books, etc. Raise your hands if you would ever agree to hire an attorney to prevent an owner from doing that, including threatening the owner. Next question.
I need some, there's some open parameters on that I don't fully understand, Dan.
Yes.
Like I said, all these questions come from incidents that have occurred this year.
Yeah.
So if an owner requested to review some records or the books of the association, would you ever support hiring an attorney to prevent them from doing that, as it's spelled out in the bylaws?
There are stipulations in the bylaws on how that is to be done, on how the owners can come and view the books, and those stipulations should be followed, and the owners should have full access to the books as necessary, but not, as I recall the bylaws, it's a matter. As I recall the bylaws, it's really a matter of following how much and when, and it's not just an open, come at 8 o'clock in the morning every morning and go through the books and sort through and take hours and hours of the staff's time. But it's something that the records are available under the stated parameters, right?
But it's also, you cannot do that. You cannot come under any circumstances and inspect and review.
You cannot come under any.
There's nothing in the bylaws that says an owner is not allowed to look at the books under the parameters, and I think there are others than what you just specified.
Correct. There's nothing that says you cannot look. Everything says you can look following these set of parameters. Right.
Questions?
I have one question concerning the dining room.
Hang on.
I have one question concerning the dining room. I have heard over and over and over again how cold it is in there. And the only answer I've had is maybe the room is so large it's difficult to control that. Is that the answer? Is that the answer?
No, that's not the answer. That's something I would want to look into further on a more detailed basis myself to investigate, which I have not investigated, because the dining room is controlled by thermostats like every other room. And most times in restaurants and other workplaces, the dining room is controlled by the staff. And the staff moving around, they're busy, they're running, they're getting hot, so they turn the thermostat down to where it's cold. And of course, it should be balanced by the people who are eating there and not the staff who's working there. And I would have to dig into that further to find out the details of what you're talking about, what's cold, who's cold. Some people are cold, while other people are hot in the same room, you know, because right now,
There's so many elderly people, I'm sure they're the majority.
well, I would think so too, but,
Yeah.
but then again, what are the parameters? Because if we raise the temperature to 80 degrees and everybody's real comfortable, then it's just too hot. So that's an answer that needs to be investigated to see where we are and how personal it is for each individual.
You know, with that, we'd have to review it. Again, there's controls on it, and I know when I was here, we'd come up all the time, it'd be turned on, be turned off, be turned higher, turned lower. You can find a happy medium. You could also use electronic controls to turn it up at certain times and lock it. Because again, it depends on who's at the front, who's in charge, who's the supervisor at the time. Everyone adjusts how they feel. And you know, with management can come in and say, look, all right, we're gonna set this. You set the parameters for certain times. In the afternoon, when it's slow, you turn it back down to save costs. But there are ways to take care of that.
Thank you. Questions?
This is my last question, everybody. So, I've heard rumors that board members receive payment, in quotes, like having their meals charge waived and internet charges waived. While I'm not opposed to the idea that our board members, who I know spend a lot of time, devote a lot of their time to our community, I'm not opposed to this idea of some sort of payment or compensation. Our bylaws under section 4.09 do not allow for resident owners to receive any compensation whatsoever. So to the ones that, to the two resident owners, do you think board members should receive compensation or not?
I don't think so unless it's in the bylaws, and whatever those laws are, I'm here to adhere to.
I heard this rumor also. It was news to me. I think I fall in the same position. I don't, unless it is in the bylaws, it should not be done. Probably not at all.
So just as a follow-on, like I said, I'm not opposed to it, but I would just want to make sure that if that was something that the board members or the community feel, because I've heard different opinions on it. Like some people feel absolutely in support of that, and some people say no. But if that were the case, I would want our homeowner association to submit an amendment for the bylaws and not have this practice that could be in violation.
Well, everyone gets free Wi-Fi, or, you know, it's included in our fee. Having an occasional lunch or dinner that the board does and together seems fine to me. But I've never served on a board that got compensation.
Questions? Making you hold your hand up on
It's working for you. If you knew that 75% of the owners were opposed to some potential activity, as a member of the board, would you find some way to skirt that clear direction from the owners and do it anyway? Raise your hand if you would.
that. That's a pretty ambiguous question. You've got something more specific?
At the budget meeting and capital budget meeting, yes, I have something very specific.
Oh, so not today?
No.
So it's not really a question, okay.
No, it is a question. I just asked it.
You know, let me jump in here. Maybe that's just like those people at the Watergate who convinced the board that they shouldn't have a good insurance policy. And I don't know if it was 75%, I have no idea. But the board has to make decisions based on the best information that it can get. It has to seek information, and it has to do the right thing. So if those 75% of the people are recommending something that should not be done, then they have to oppose it.
If there's some legal basis for it, I would agree.
There has to be a legal basis, but there also has to be the information that goes into the decision.
Okay. Any other questions? You're through?
I'm done.
Okay.
If you were a member of the board, would you hire a consultant to investigate an idea you had and commit and spend our money, owner's money, before you found out from the owners if they thought your idea was a good one?
Are you asking if, with a vote?
Raise your hand if you would do that.
I would probably do that.
So I want to make sure. You would hire a consultant to investigate an idea and spend the owner's money before you've got some information from the owners about whether they agreed with you that that's something that we should investigate.
Well, I think that's a very open-ended question. There are way too many unanswered questions on that. First of all, sometimes we need to do that to build the knowledge of the board to see if that's a practical thing to ask or not. Because when you go to a meeting with an idea, you want to present it. In order to present it, you want to have some level of knowledge and information about what you're presenting. Otherwise, how do the people that you're talking to understand what you're doing, and how can they decide whether or not that's something that they want to do? So yes, I think we need to go to consultants for particular items if we don't have that expertise in-house to be able to give a reasonable answer to questions that are provided that would come from a meeting. But again, that also has to have a reasonable amount of expense and not some crazy number.
Yes.
Because if you come out and you say, okay, we can get started on this thing for $5,000 or $7,000. Okay, fine. If you're going to go through it and say, okay, it's going to cost $700,000 to get this program going, that's a crazy thing to do. We need to come back with something that's more practical, something that would give us an answer to start to have some good parameters to tell the owners what they're going to be voting on. Okay.
Scott, for an example might be that if somebody on the board had an interest in building another tower or 2 towers or something like that, and would go out and begin to get some kind of renderings as to what it would look like and where they could be placed and all that, wouldn't it be prudent to ask the owners first, would you ever, under any circumstance, agree to build another tower and take on the debt for doing that? Why spend a penny on that if the owners would say, we have no interest in having our view blocked or taking on debt or anything like that at all?
Well, but then again, I see where the other side of that is, if people say, well, I don't know, show me what you're talking about. Let me see a little bit about what might be there, so maybe I could say yes, or maybe I could say no. So it's one of those things where, depending upon how you can envision something, because I know when I was building houses, there were 2 times when I'd sell a house most of the time. That was when it was still pretty much in the drawing stages, or maybe the foundation was in, or maybe just the studs were up. Because people could come in and make their own modifications at that point in time and could say, yes, I can envision a completed house. Between that time and until the time we had it painted and the appliances in, the houses never sold because people couldn't envision what it would look like in the end. They wanted to see what it would look like. And so that's why I go back to the same thing. I think people are gonna say, I don't understand what you're talking about. Show me a picture.
I think without spending a lot of money on those renderings or what have you, I think the biggest thing would be, out of 300 owners, is to get a majority vote.
Again, listening to Jerry on this, I think under normal circumstances, when there's very few dollars anticipated being spending, you're going to ask people to give you a proposal. And these type of things they probably won't even bill you for. They'll come out, they want the business, they'll pay for it. Anytime there's a major expense, capital X, whatever, it's going to run, it should run before all the members. It should be posted out, we want feedback, this is what we're hoping to do, this is why we want to do it, this is what we may need to have done. You put it before all the owners, and at that point, after you get the feedback of the majority, or whatever the case may be, and you state the reason why the board is looking to move forward with a certain item, then if it's looks like you're going to need it, have to do it, want to do it, or there's a good reason why you're going to do it, then you proceed. But you put all the numbers out front so the members know, anticipate what you're going to spend. You do not blindside them.
I agree with the thought that people cannot envision an abstract, and they might need some information before they can make a decision on that. But also, it seems like that information would come from the other side, from the outside. The bidders who are interested in doing something like this, presenting it, and then that information can go to the owners. But having the board spend, well, you know, it's very hard to talk theoretically about the amount of money, but having, just saying, a large amount of money to pursue an idea that has not even been bid, I think would be wrong.
Good word over here.
Okay, any other questions?
I have one. Thank you. Are there ever going to pressure wash, or are you ever going to pressure wash or do something about cleaning the balconies? They need it desperately. And other cement areas also as you go into the parking area.
Well, I'll address that first. We did do it, I guess, what, about 4+ years ago? All these balconies were pretty black as the stroller here. And we did it in-house. And again, you know, we put on this sealer that was supposed to keep it from getting black again. It didn't work. As you walk around the building, you can see. Another issue you have a lot of owners who have a lot of plants up there who, I mean, the dirt, the rain, it just goes down on the next balcony, down, and so on. That's going to continue. You can't stop people from saying you can't put anything on your porches. We did it. We had bids on it. I believe 70, 80, 90,000. We did it in-house. I did it myself. I did all 300 of these balconies, believe it or not, for I think around $2,500. All the bleach and the chemicals and the rentals and the pressure washers. It's something that needs to be done on a regular basis.
Did you have to do it by yourself?
I did every one by myself.
So you had to stand up there and reach
I put a hose over the roof.
Yeah.
The summer, it was in the middle of the hot stuff there, heated up my water. We moved everything off everyone's balcony. We put it in their condo. Several people here know it. And we pressure washed, cleaned it, and put everything back one by one.
It's the outside that looks so bad.
I know, but it needs to be done often. It can't be done every 10, 20 years. And it looked terrible. We can go back to some pictures, but you can go back and see when they look very good. And of course, Jerry had mentioned that, let's spray. We sprayed all this chemical on them. It did not work as way as it should have been. But I agree, it needs to be done every few years.
Okay. Any other questions? How many more do you have?
2.
Okay.
Stand here. We're blessed here at the towers in that we have engineers, architects, lawyers, accountants, contract specialists, medical professionals, business owners that are residents and owners. If you're on the board, would you commit to reaching out to those people to help in the decision-making process for what you're undertaking?
Yes.
Absolutely. We do that currently to whatever degree we can get them to participate. You know.
Let me know when it's okay to speak, Jack.
I love being in charge, you know.
Tap me on the shoulder when I can talk. I agree with that, Scott, and you in particular and I have worked diligently and a lot on things, but in other cases, it's been like pulling hen's teeth to be able to get things noted and experience recognized and all that, so I appreciate that point. My final question is that had you been on the board when the board considered adding the $250 annual lease renewal fee, by a show of hands, would you have voted in favor of that? Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you. All right. There was no show of hands. All right, one last question. Do you have any questions? Anyone want to have a follow-up? Good to go? All right. Well, then, we've done this in an hour, folks, so I appreciate your time. I appreciate your questions. I thank you all for answering them quickly.
Can we make a statement?
Yes, I'm going to ask you if you'd like to make a statement before we end. And just thank you for taking the time to come and meet your candidates that are running this year. Yeah, I'll give you all a last time to make a statement. I would hope that it would be pretty brief, so go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out today. I look forward to hopefully being your next board person. As I mentioned earlier, I've got another 20 years to be here, so I want to sit there with everybody now and in the future and all the new people we may bring in here just to make Mount Vernon Towers the premier spot in Sandy Springs.
Amen.
Thank you, Jerry.
Doing the resume that we did, that you hopefully have all read, was a very interesting experience. Resumes give you a chance to blow your own horn, but they do not ask, what was the takeaway? What did you learn through the experience that you had? I did some thinking about that. When I was in Alaska, I worked for the Civil Service Commission. There were a lot of people there who came to Alaska because the salaries were huge, but then they discovered they couldn't live on them. So you have to get that information as much as you can. When when the first satellites went up, there was no one tasked to get the orbit, to compute the orbit of the satellite. I worked for the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory at Harvard. The Harvard professors and all the amateur astronomers of the world over worked together. And I did part of the calculation, believe it or not, on a calculator that you pulled the handle to make it work. We were in a Radcliffe dormitory, but we cooperated and we did the job. After a while, the astronomers learned something about programming, and the programmers learned something about astronomy, and it got much better. Okay, while I was a teacher, I had to communicate with students, I had to communicate with their parents, I had to communicate with other teachers and with the administration. Communication is the key to almost everything. And last but not least, I've already told you about my experience on a board in Washington, D.C. All of those things apply, but that lesson that the board has to do the right thing is the outcome for that. And I won't be around for 20 years. I'm not sure I want to, because the next 20 years are going to be tough. And I appreciate that. And I would like to help out at this time. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to serve the board. If I do get on the board, I will give you my utmost diligence. I believe that every single owner, if you own 5 condos or 1 condo, should be treated equally. I don't believe in favoritism. I do not believe that certain owners get passes on items. I believe that when you walk around this building, it should look clean, neat, repaired, and this building should be safe. When I came here, we were not up to code on a lot of items.
You were what?
This building was not up to code on certain areas. We brought this building into code. With that being said, I believe that whatever we do, a board member, we should be fiduciary. The best interest should be for all the owners and not one in particular. We're here to serve, and if we're going to spend your money, we better have a good darn reason why we're doing it, and we should have multi-bids and not favor any contractor over others. And I'm not saying it's been done, but I would think that, the bid should be open to people. If they want to see different bids, I don't think anyone's ever asked. But when you see one contractor for a lot of years, I want to make sure every year we're bidding things out. I want to make sure that we're constantly getting quotes. I want to make sure that we're always keeping a sharp pencil and that we're being mindful of what the owners spend here are charged. And I believe that deep down, I think we can do better in certain areas, and I'm willing to work hard to do so.
Briefly, I want to again thank everyone for coming. I know it's a great day, and I'm sure you have nothing else to do. So, but again, as Michael went through a litany of things, those are all important things to do and things that have been done and continue to be done. I would like to continue on the board because there are still 2 major projects that I'm deeply involved in. One is the Morrison's dining room situation, and the second is what we do with the Chases. And in reality, there's a third, which is also what Mount Vernon Towers will look like in the future. Jill just came up with a great idea that I hadn't thought about before, but I think we'll look at seeing what we can do to modify the whole kitchen situation and see if it needs to be done. So, good ideas, and hope to be on the board to continue to do that. Thank you for coming.
With that, we'll say thank you and have a great day.